Okay. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Right, and today we're going to continue reading from the great disciples of the Buddha. We will read the chapter on Sariputta, the Meditator. That's the title of the chapter. But before we do that, I thought I would offer a summary of the previous chapters we had already read together about Venerable Sariputta. So we first read on the chapter called The Quest for the Dhamma. And this chapter narrates the spiritual journey of Venerable Sariputta and Maha Moggallana from their initial quest for enlightenment to their eventual encounter with the Buddha and the attainment of stream entry or sotapannahood. And it also talks about how Venerable Sariputta and Maha Moggallana had a very strong friendship bond that goes way back into their previous lives. Then we read about Sariputta the man, basically what his life was, his role as the Buddha's chief disciple, one of the Buddha's chief disciple, his exemplary qualities, and his significant contributions to the Buddha's dispensation, to the Dhamma and the Sangha. In the chapter called The Helper, that chapter highlights Sariputta's dedication to helping others, both materially and through the Dhamma, showcasing his compassion and selflessness. So he wasn't only helpful in terms of guiding others and spreading the Dhamma, he was also helpful in material sense. In the material sense, he would be very helpful at the monastery to his other fellow monks and such. Then in the chapter called The Unresentful, it illustrates Venerable Sariputta's remarkable patience and forbearance, even in the face of abuse and false accusations. So in that chapter, there were a few stories where people just wanted to test out Venerable Sariputta, and let's say hit him for no obvious reason or accuse him of something that was false. And on many occasions, he neither rebutted them nor not even so much as to ask, why did you do that to me? He just, see it as, condition arise for that person to hit me or to abuse me with false accusations, and then the condition will fall away, and then he just go about in his manner. So that really is quite a remarkable attribute of Venerable Sariputta that is really showcasing his exemplary qualities. Then last week we read about his friendships and his relatives, where we explore Venerable Sariputta's deep friendships, particularly with Venerable Ananda and Maha Moggallana, and his relationships with his family members. So his siblings all eventually joined the Sangha, the monastic order. So they got ordained. And we read about his brothers and also his sisters. And in one of the previous weeks, we read verses from the Bhikkhuni Samyutta from his sisters, Chala, Upachala, and Sisupachala. And last week, we also saw how his mother, who was a very staunch Brahmin, did not approve of Venerable Sariputta's you know, way of dedication to the Dhamma, and did not approve of how he influenced all his siblings to join the Sangha. And so his mother, Sari, that's how his name Sariputta came to be. Putta means son of, so son of Sari. So his mother was very resentful of the Sangha. And at one time, even though she offered food to Sariputta and his fellow monks, during the offering of the food, she, never stopped verbal abuse. But the whole time, Venerable Sariputta just, bear the accusations in silence, because he knew that there was no point at that time. And he wasn't even bothered at that time to voice out his frustration, or to say that, no, you shouldn't accuse us like that, or not even try to convert his mother. So that sort of patience is really something that we can, strive towards. Eventually, towards the close to the final moments of his mother's life, he managed to convert her. I think that's from another story, though we didn't read. I think it was through his one of his psychic ability. But it was also some conditions that arose during that time. So eventually his mother did take refuge in the Buddha Dhamma Sangha. Okay, so that was a quick summary that I thought to offer before we read this week's chapter, which is called Sariputta the Meditator. So let me share the screen. I can. Let's see. Here we go. Sure. Okay. Oops. I hope you can see the book on the screen. Please let me know if you can. Can either let me know. Yes? Okay, good. Right, so the meditator. When the bodhisattva, so bodhisattva is the Buddha before he gained the final enlightenment, when the bodhisattva had left the household life in search of a path to enlightenment, he first entered upon the discipleship under two distinguished meditation masters of the time, through whose guidance he reached the two highest formless attainments, the base of nothingness and the base of neither perception nor non-perception. So details of which here reference Majjhima Nikaya number 26. So from the account of Sariputta's quest, it seems that his inclinations took him along a different route, not to the feet of those who had mastered the domain of subconscious states, but to those who excelled in philosophical discourse and intellectual analysis. So yes, Venerable Sariputta was known to be fairly intellectual, and his pursuit of the Dhamma was also along that line. It's just, different people, different, right? So this was just his own character, his inclination. His initiation into the Dhamma too, as we have seen, came about not through the path of the meditative absorptions, but through a direct, spontaneous insight into the conditionality of all phenomena and into the unconditioned element beyond the network of causes and effects. This is not to say that Sariputta was not a master of, when we say meditative absorptions, that's in reference to the jhanas. This is not to say that he was not a master of jhanas. He was, as we know and read from Majjhima Nikaya 111, Anupada Sutta, where he clearly, in that sutta, mapped out the path through the jhanas. And nevertheless, once Sariputta became a disciple of the Buddha, there you go, he quickly attained mastery over all the stages of meditative absorption, which is the jhanas, and harnessed his meditative experience as a tool for the final breakthrough to enlightenment. The process by which, okay, so I'm ahead of myself. The process by which Sariputta advanced from the stage of stream enterer to that of arhatship is related by the Buddha in the Anupada Sutta. In this revealing discourse, the Blessed One declares that during the 2-week period of his striving for the final goal, Sariputta had practiced insight into states one by one as they occurred. So here it's quite clear, also mentioned in the suttas, it was over a period of 2 weeks. So it isn't like, oh, in one whole sitting, Sariputta went from first jhana all the way to the cessation, right? He had gone through this period over 2 weeks and in succession. So he mastered in succession the 9 meditative attainments, the 4 fine material jhanas, the 4 immaterial jhanas, and the cessation of perception and feeling. So the first 4 are we call fine material because there's still some relation to some sort of form, and then the 4 immaterial because it's formless, and then finally cessation. So on mastering each attainment except the last 2, which are too subtle for introspective investigation, so neither perception nor non-perception, and cessation is really at that point very, very subtle for any form of introspection. He would, apart from those 2, he would analyze it into its constituent factors, define each of these factors in turn, and then consider how they arose, how they persisted, and how they disappeared. So basically, looking at them from the point of the 3 characteristics as well. So here, taken from the sutta, abiding, unattracted, unrepelled. Unattracted means neither clinging, unrepelled, neither pushing it away, independent, detached, so not seeing each condition as they arise as this is me, this is mine, this is myself. So that is one of the 3 characteristics, namely anatta. It's also the first in the Noble Eightfold Path, harmonious perception, seeing that everything that arises is independent of self. It's not personal, basically. So it's detached, free, dissociated, with a mind rid of barriers, with a mind rid of obstacles, hindrances, etc., etc. He would then cultivate the next higher attainment. So at each point, he knew this is not the end. I just see it come. This is not me, not mine, not myself. Something else is gonna happen next. And he kept going like that until he reached the cessation of perception and feeling. His actual breakthrough to arhatship, as mentioned above, took place while he was standing behind the Buddha. So this was an interesting one. He was fanning the Buddha, standing behind the Buddha, fanning him as the master gave a discourse to the wanderer Dighanakha, who was Sariputta's nephew. And the theme of the Buddha's talk was the comprehension of feelings. So we talk about the 4 foundations of mindfulness. We talked about mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of feeling, mindfulness of perception, and mindfulness of body, mindfulness of feeling, mindfulness of the mind, and mindfulness of mind objects. Okay, so the Buddha began by explaining the nature of the body, instructing Digha to contemplate the body in such a way that desire, affection, concern for the body would be abandoned. So basically seeing that here it says, then he explained the contemplation of feeling. All feeling should be seen as impermanent condition and dependently arisen as subject to break up, vanish, disappear, and cease. So basically seeing body, feeling, etc. in terms of the 3 characteristics as well. So the characteristic of impermanence, anicca, that means it's constantly changing. Dukkha, unsatisfactory, because it's subject to conditions. Our body, the feeling of pleasant feeling, unpleasant feeling, and neither pleasant nor unpleasant feeling. These are all always changing, are impermanent. They are unsatisfactory because they are subject to conditions that arise. And they are anatta, they are impersonal. So here it said, then he explained the contemplation of feeling. All feeling should be seen as impermanent condition and dependently arisen as subject to break up, vanish, disappear, and cease. So basically, feelings arise, they come, then the feeling ceases. Same thing. And it's always changing, impermanent. As Sariputta listened to the Buddha's words, he reflected. The Blessed One speaks about the abandonment of these things through direct knowledge. He speaks about the relinquishment of these things through direct knowledge. As he reflected thus, suddenly final knowledge arose and his mind was liberated from the cankers by non-clinging. In his stanzas in the Therigatha, Sariputta recalls the way he attained arhatship. The Blessed One, the Buddha, the one with vision, was teaching the Dhamma to another. While the Dhamma was being taught, I lent an ear keen on the goal. That listening of mine was not in vain, for I am released free from anchors. Although Sariputta ranked first among the Buddha's disciples in overall comprehension of the Dhamma, yes, he was one of the chief male disciples, but also in terms of wisdom, he was second only to the Buddha. But unlike many other monks, he did not strive after the supernormal modes of psychic powers that were often accessories of an arhat. Accessories here means byproduct, so to speak, byproduct of their meditative attainment. So it's not that they strive to have psychic ability, just that for some people, it becomes a byproduct of their attainments. Thus, in the next verses of the Therigatha, he states that he felt no inclination for the 5 supernormal powers, qualities in which his friend Moggallana excelled. Nevertheless, the commentary to these verses tell us that while Sariputta made no deliberate effort to obtain the supernormal powers, they came into his hands spontaneously along with his attainment of arhatship, being inherent qualifications of a chief disciple, byproduct, basically. The treatise on psychic power of the Patisambhidamagga also credits Sariputta with the power of intervention by concentration, samadhi, or collectedness, samadhi vipara iddhi. Iddhi means supernormal power, okay? Which is capable of intervening in certain normal physiological processes or other natural events. The canonical basis for this ascription is a story in the Udana. So the Udana is one of the smaller sections in the Tipitaka, the Three Baskets. If I'm not mistaken, it's part of the Khuddaka Nikaya, which is a section in the Tipitaka which collects all the smaller collections, puts them together. So those of you who are not familiar, the best way is to go to Sutra Central because it's well organized there. You see, we all know Majjhima Nikaya, which is middle length sayings. Then you've got Digha Nikaya, which is what do they call it? Longer length sayings. I can't remember now. So you got a middle length sayings, and then you got Digha Nikaya. Digha means the suttas, the discourses in that book is longer. Then you got the Samyutta Nikaya, which we often read from, Anguttara Nikaya, which is a collection of, in the Anguttara Nikaya, it's put together like a book of ones, book of twos, book of threes. So like, for example, in the book of twos, the Buddha mentioned, for example, of all my disciples, of all my male disciples, foremost in them is Sariputta, Venerable Sariputta, and Mahamoggallana. In your practice, you should aspire to practice like them. And then the Buddha said the same of Bhikkhuni Khema and Upalavana. Of all my female disciples, foremost in them are Bhikkhuni Khema and Bhikkhuni Upalavana. Therefore, you should, in your practice, aspire to practice like them. So that is in the book of two. So the Anguttara Nikaya is compiled like book of one, book of two, threes, fours, like that. Yeah. Then you've got the Udana, which is just a little bit like everything else, so to speak. So the Dhammapada, which we all know. Yeah. So when we go for retreats and we have that little booklet, Twin Retreats. And in the section after we recite Namo Tassa 3 times, we take the refuges, we take our precepts, then we have the verses from the Dhammapada. So the Dhammapada is a book within the Khuddaka Nikaya. Udana is another one, Therigatha, others as well. Then we've got Jatakas, which are the previous lives of the Buddha. That also falls into that. The Sutta Nipata, which some of our twin guides also read from. The Sutta Nipata is known to be one of the consists of the earlier discourses, earlier part of the Buddha's dispensation. We got the Itivuttaka, yeah, which I think a couple of times Bhante Vimalaramsi, sorry, my bad, Bhante Dhammagavesi recently reads from. That's verses that are not remembered by Venerable Ananda, but by a lay woman. I can't remember her name, escapes me now, starts with a K. But yeah, all these are smaller books, and they fall under the so-called basket of the Khuddaka Nikaya. Okay, sorry, I digressed a lot there. Anyway, coming back to here, the canonical basis for this is a story in the Udana. So once, when Sariputta was living with Mahamoggallana at Kapota Kandara, so that's a place, he was sitting in meditation out in the open air on a full moon night, his head freshly shaved. So as per the Vinaya, the monks, they often they have to shave their heads on full moon days. Okay. So happened on this particular full moon night, a malicious demon, yakkha, passing overhead in a spiteful mood, descended and gave the elder is Sariputta here, gave him a severe blow on the head. Boom, hit him on the head. But he was so deeply absorbed in meditation that he suffered no harm. Okay. And the story continues. So that's, in a way, a byproduct of his Iddhi, power by samadhi. So he was so deeply in samadhi, in collectedness, that even though this yakkha came and hit him, he did not have any injuries. And the Venerable Mahamoggallana saw the incident, approached the Venerable Sariputta and asked him, "Friend, are you comfortable?" So, of course, they both were friends, but also as Bhante Vimalaramsi had explained before in early part or the early years of the Buddha when he taught, the monks addressed each other as friend before they addressed each other as like Bhante or Venerable Sir. They just address each other as friends. Friend, are you comfortable? Are you doing well? Does nothing trouble you? I'm comfortable, friend Moggallana, said the Venerable Sariputta. I'm doing well, but I have a slight headache. So only a slight headache. That's all he felt. Thereupon the Venerable Mahamoggallana said, it is wonderful, friend Sariputta. It is marvelous, friend Sariputta. How great is the psychic power and might of the Venerable Sariputta. For just now, friend Sariputta, a certain demon gave you a blow on the head, and such a mighty blow it was that it might have felled an elephant or split a mountain peak. Oh, so apparently this very powerful demon really gave a very strong blow, yeah, but didn't injure Venerable Sariputta. But the Venerable Sariputta says only this, I am comfortable, friend Moggallana, I'm doing well, but I have a slight headache. Then the Venerable Sariputta replied, it is wonderful, friend Moggallana. It is marvelous, friend Moggallana. How great is this psychic power and might of the Venerable Moggallana that he should see any demon at all. As for me, I have not seen so much as a mud sprite. So very funny how Venerable Sariputta replied, you know, when Mahamoggallana was saying, wow, your psychic ability is fabulous. You were not injured at all. You only have a slight headache. And his reply was, instead of saying, yeah, I guess so, huh? It was more like complimenting his friend in return, saying, wow, your psychic ability is great as well because you could see that demon. I didn't see anything. Okay. So it's a very interesting conversation. Meanwhile, the Blessed One, the Buddha, had been listening in with his divine ear to this discussion between the two elders and then spoke the following inspired utterance in praise of Sariputta, whose mind stands unmoving as a rock, unattached to things that arouse attachment, unangered by things that provoke anger. How can suffering come to one whose mind has been cultivated thus? So the Buddha praised Sariputta. And in the previous chapters, we had already read that Venerable Sariputta had many fine qualities, but that he does not cling to anything. He does not ever think that I'm the chief disciple, so therefore I must always be in the front of the line. I must always have the finest food. I must be respected. I must be this, that. He has no such thoughts at all. He was always humble. In fact, always open to learning, even if it was from a young monk. Nothing would provoke him into anger, nothing at all. So the Buddha praised all his qualities and said, if a mind like that cannot be shaken at all, how can any suffering come to that person? So after he had become securely established in the highest goal, meditation became for Sariputta a natural expression of his realization, rather than a means towards some higher attainment. In the Sariputta Samyutta, the Venerable Ananda questioned Sariputta on several occasions about how he had passed his day, which is quite common. You know, usually they see each other and they, you know, just in the similar manner, like how we would ask a friend who we would see today, and we would say, "Oh, hello, how are you today?" kind of thing, you know. So very similar, right? And Sariputta replied that he had spent the day dwelling in the various stages of meditative absorption. Yes, so we have seen on several occasions in some suttas That is how Sariputta replies, actually. But in the case of each stage, he added he was utterly free of self-reference. He had no thought of, oh, this is me doing that. This is me doing that. This is me attaining this. This is me, So here it said, I have no such thoughts as I'm entering the jhana. I have entered it. I am rising for it. So there's no I, basically, in the thoughts, in his thoughts. There's just, this condition has arisen. If we go back to the reference to the Majjhima Nikaya 111, so he would go abiding, unattracted, unrepelled, independent, detached, free, dissociated, with a mind rid of barriers on each of the stages. That's how he practiced. That's how he dwelled. Even after attaining the final enlightenment, he also spends his day like that. On another occasion, Sariputta described to Ananda how he could enter a unique state of concentration in which he would not be cognizant of any familiar object of cognition. In regard to the earth element, he was without perception of earth, and so also in regard to the other three elements, the four material objects and everything else pertaining to this world, or even to the world beyond. So basically, he no longer had any form of clinging to whether immaterial or material or immaterial. And yet, he said he was not entirely without perception. His only perception was Nibbana is the cessation of becoming. This inscrutable attainment seems to be identical with the meditative abiding in voidness that the Venerable Sariputta regularly cultivated. We read in the Pindapata Parisuddhi Sutta that the Buddha once noticed that Sariputta's features were serene and radiant and asked him how he had acquired such radiance. Sariputta replied that he frequently practiced the abiding in voidness. Thereupon the Buddha exclaimed that this was the abode of great men and proceeded to describe it in detail. The commentary identifies this abiding in voidness with the fruition, attainment of arahantship, entered upon by focusing on Nibbana's aspect of voidness. Here, not entirely sure. Maybe I'm not sure we've covered or if we have a recording of Majjhima Nikaya 151. But let me check. Otherwise, maybe we could have a reading on that. Let's see, let me note it down. Majjhima Nikaya 151. Okay, so I wouldn't comment on that for now. When Sariputta became absorbed in this meditative state, even the gods from the highest heavens descended to venerate him, as the Venerable Mahakassapa testifies in the following verses. These many devas, powerful and glorious, 10,000 devas from the Brahma's company, stand with joined hands worshipping him. Sariputta, wise marshal of the Dhamma, the great meditator in concentration. Homage to you, O thoroughbred man. Homage to you, O supreme man. We do not know what it is, independence on which you meditate. This is a verse from the Theragatha. For Sariputta's proficiency in meditative absorption was skillfully balanced by capacity for thorough and exact analysis that had been honed through his practice of insight meditation. So here it's, in a way, it goes back to the earlier commentary that said that Venerable Sariputta does have more inclination towards, what was the word? So we go back to the earlier part of this chapter. So his inclination is not towards psychic abilities, but more towards intellectual analysis. So his practice was, in a way, more towards that direction. Okay. So let's go back to where we read. So among the Buddha's bhikkhu disciples, Sariputta was the foremost of those with great wisdom, yes. And in the exercise of wisdom, he stood second only to the Buddha himself. The chief expression of Sariputta's wisdom was his facility in the four analytical knowledges, Patisambhita Jnana, which he acquired during the 2-week period following his ordination. It was half a month after my ordination, friends, that I realized in all their parts and details, the analytical knowledge of meaning, the analytical knowledge of the doctrine, the analytical knowledge of language, the analytical knowledge of perspicacity. This is a new word for me. These I expound in many ways, teach them and make them known, establish and reveal them, explain and clarify them. If anyone has any doubt or uncertainty, he may ask me, and I shall explain. Present is a master who is well acquainted with our attainments. So the first analytical knowledge confers special insight into the meaning of the doctrines. Their doctrines means the sutras, their implications and ramifications, as well as into the effects that might arise from specific causes, cause and effect. Yeah. The second gives special insights into the doctrines themselves. They are interconnections within the total framework of the Dhamma. So you can think of it as, some of you may remember, Venerable Sister Kema used to say the Dhamma is like, it's like interwoven. It's like it's like weaving a piece of cloth, big cloth, and it's like you're just weaving. So they're all interconnected in that sense. They're all intertwined with each other. So that's the second one. The first one is the meanings behind the doctrines. The second one is how they intertwine, interconnect. The third is the skill of understanding the language, understanding of language, grammar, and etymology. And this is important in terms of being able to guide, teach others, because the medium in which to pass on the Dhamma, share the Dhamma, is through language, right? The fourth is the ability to marshal the former three types of knowledge when expounding the Dhamma in order to awaken understanding in others. So basically combine the first three and have the skill to guide others. That's a very specific skill. So through his endowment with the four analytical knowledges, Sariputta excelled not only in personal understanding, but also in the task of teaching and explaining the Dhamma. That's why he was known as the marshal of the Dhamma, and he excelled in bringing people into the Dhamma. So remember, in one of the earlier chapters, we read an excerpt from one of the suttas in the Majjhima Nikaya that has a reference where Venerable Sariputta is like the mother, brings us into the path, and then so he guides people into the path, at least into stream entry, and then pass them on to, here you go, Mahamoggallana, you go to Mahamoggallana, and he will guide you all the way to Nibbana. So Venerable Sariputta is like the mother, Venerable Mahamoggallana is like the nurse, nurses you till you. So let's put it this way. Venerable Sariputta is like the mother gives birth to you in this so-called new life when you start walking on the path, and then Venerable Mahamoggallana nurses you along the path, if that makes sense. Okay, so that was just a symbolic reference to how they complemented each other. They were complementary of each other in terms of being the two chief disciples of the Buddha in guiding the Bhikkhu Sangha. Okay? And because he was so versatile in these respects, at the conclusion of the Anupada Sutta, the Buddha could declare him to be his true spiritual son and his chief assistant in the work of turning the wheel of the Dhamma. If one could ever say rightly of one that he has come to mastery and perfection in noble virtue, in noble concentration, in noble wisdom, and in noble liberation, it is of Sariputta that one could thus declare. If one could ever say rightly of one that he is the Blessed One's true son, born of his speech, born of his Dhamma, formed of the Dhamma, heir to the Dhamma, not heir to worldly benefit, it is of Sariputta that one could thus rightly declare. After me, O monks, Sariputta rightly turns the supreme wheel of the Dhamma, even as I have turned it. Okay, so in the next chapter, there are references to, in the suttas, so here you see the title of the, so main title is Turn of the Wheel, but then you see the subtitle, the suttas. So it gives a reference to, you know, where in the suttas we see either Venerable Sariputta's giving discourse or whether he was referred to. Okay, so there's quite a number of suttas. And then we'll talk about here as well. Let me see. Yeah, we'll skip the section on Abhidhamma. We won't go so much into Abhidhamma. I'm just going very quickly just to see what else in terms of the chapters on Venerable Sariputta. It's like the last moment. There's also a sutta. And then more references to the discourses with reference to Venerable Sariputta. And one of the famous ones is Anathapindika Sutta, where Anathapindika was lying on his deathbed and he requested to have a personal, he personally requested to have Venerable Sariputta at his side as he was passing away. So you can see here reference to quite a number of discourses. So he, of course, played a key role. A lot of mention here. Okay. So then, of course, the next chapter is on Mahamoggallana. But we won't, I think people can read through which suttas are with reference to Venerable Sariputta. We can read through some of the earlier chapters here, sorry, where we talk about some of the suttas. We can read through some of this in the next book reading section. Okay, but we will stop somewhere before the Abhidhamma, so we won't go into the discussion about the reference to the Abhidhamma. And yes, so I am finding out about how to run a poll on the WhatsApp group. So I'm interested to know if people would be, so we try and intersperse each week. Not every week is a book reading, but in between there are twin guides. So like next week we will have Bhante Dhamma Gavesi. The following week we're not sure yet. But when we do have book readings or readings of the elders, either the Teras or Teris, I am at the moment tossed between first reading a session learning about Bhikkhuni Upalavana first before we jump into the chapter, the section on Mahamoggallana, because before we started reading this book, we had read a couple of Teri Gathas, songs or verses from the elder nuns, and then we also read some chapters from the Bhikkhuni Samyutta. And one prominent character we have not read about is Bhikkhuni Upalavana. So during the Buddha's time, of course, we have Venerable Sariputta and Venerable Mahamoggallana as chief male disciples, two of them. But the Buddha also had two female chief disciples. Similarly, Venerable Bhikkhuni Khema, who was foremost in wisdom, just like how Venerable Sariputta is foremost in wisdom. And we had Bhikkhuni Upalavana, who was foremost in psychic ability, just like how Mahamoggallana, excuse me, was foremost in psychic ability. And so I thought, we have not read about Bhikkhuni Upalavana, so I thought to run a poll, or people can just message me to see what they would prefer to read first. Would they like to learn about Bhikkhuni Upalavana first, or we could go on to read about Venerable Mahamoggallana. So for today, we stop here. I hope this has been fruitful. I personally have found a reading about Venerable Sariputta very motivating. So I find myself quite often when I catch my mind going into the state of stories about da 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 or this and that, it's very helpful sometimes to recollect, oh, Venerable Sariputta was caught in a similar situation. What did he do? He didn't say a word, or he had no response, or, so sometimes it's quite useful to read about or be inspired by these senior disciples, these elders during the Buddha's time. Not so much as to put them up on the pedestal, so to speak, but more to draw inspiration in terms of their characters, their exemplary qualities, how little or how much we can learn from them and apply and practice them in our daily lives. So I hope that these readings have been useful. Any questions or comments? Those who have dialed in. Have they been useful to you, these past readings? No questions? Okay. Have they been useful? Have you found them useful in your daily practice? Not just in meditation, but living life. Do you find any inspiration from them? Well, I hope they have been. Okay. So some interesting points. So some interesting points sometimes come up. Yeah, okay. I'm glad they've been beneficial to some extent. And occasionally I also look at the view counts in the YouTube channel just to see what resonates with the general public and what doesn't. So I use view counts as a measure. So yeah, we shall see. Hopefully I can run the poll soon as well. All right, let's share merits before we end. Share the screen. Okay. And share the merits together. May suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit that we have thus acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas and nagas of mighty power share this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay. I wish all of you, those who dialed in, those who will listen to this recording at any time. Can I please share a copy of this book? Yes, I can. Give me 1 second. Where is it? Yep. So I'm just going to pop it in the chat. Hang on. And it's transferring soon. I'll also ask Bante Dhammagavesi if he can include a link to the download site. So it's freely downloadable from the Buddhist Publication Society. Buddhist Publication Society in Kandy, Sri Lanka. Sorry, give me 1 second because of my internet. It is transferring in snail mode. Can you see it? Can you see it? Om Prakash Ji, can you download it? Yep. Are you able to download it? Can you let me know? Yes? Okay. In any case, I will also ask. My video is fairly low resolution. Yes, something wrong with my internet today. I had quite some challenges earlier today. I don't know why. Although we are having a cloudy day and my internet is based on mobile, not landline. I have a long story short, it is weather prone. So if we have a lot of clouds, I think, up in the sky, then I'm not sure if it's 5G. I'm not sure. I'm with a provider where, well, the thing is, yeah, anyway, long story short, yeah, it is weather prone. So sorry about that. But sounds okay, so I'm glad. And we've got the book covered, so people can still hear it and can still download and read the book. So I hope that is okay. Screen was good. Okay, screen was good. It's just my video, which is great then because yeah, the book. Yes, I know. The video, you don't need to see me. So that's not necessary. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. Keep smiling. Remember to smile. I find it super, super helpful throughout the day. I'm also always trying to remind myself, even as I'm washing the dishes, am I smiling? Did I remember to smile? As I'm cleaning, did I remember to smile? So I'm getting better at catching myself when I don't smile, although not often enough. So I'm making a point to keep smiling. It's very, very useful. So I wish everyone a good week and happy smiling. That will help a lot. Yes, we are all less than perfect, but smiling really, really helps a lot. So remembering to smile is really key to our success in a lot of ways, actually. Just a simple smile. I wish you all a good week ahead. Take care and keep smiling. Have a happy week. Bye.